Well, my name is Danny Wong Ziken, and I'm from Kota Kinabalu, Sabah. I was a member of the second Kota Kinabalu Company. I was there from 1978, end of 78, until I leave for my studies in July 1987. I'm now a professor of history at the University of Malaya, and I'm also the Dean of the Faculty of the Arts and Social Sciences. So this is a very old faculty, so we also have quite a few boys who actually passed through this faculty in the past. Well, I think it was the end of my primary six, so we were going home from a town, and I passed through the church where the BB second KK was, and I think there was an evening when the boys were leaving with their bicycle and walking. So I thought, wow, that's a very smart-looking uniform, shining with armful of badges. I was at that time hoping to join the Scouts because my cousin was a King Scout. So I was impressed by the Scout and so on. But then when I saw this BB, I didn't know what it was called and so on, but I made it a point to inquire. So I found out that this was the Boys Brigade. And at that time, it was December, I think, November or December, I can't remember, but it was a time when BB was taking a break. About to take a break. I think that was probably one of the last few meetings they were having for that year. And so I went and asked the captain, Mr. Donald Snow was there, and he said, yeah, you can come, but then we wouldn't actually start until January. So I went and signed up. So I was together with another boy. Somehow we were the odd ones, join up end of the year, and we signed up. And then come January, we sign up. Of course, I go there. I went there every week in shorts, and then one of the NCOs was taking us a drill and so on. So later, when January starts, there was a big recruitment, and then there were other boys who joined us for that year. So that was how I came to join the BB. I was impressed by the uniform and the badges, not for anything else. Well, I think it was fun in the sense that a lot of things that we don't learn in schools were actually being taught in the BB. So I was active in school, in also certain clubs and so on, but then the BB taught us a lot of things and gave us the kind of camaraderie that couldn't find it in school, I think. Maybe it was the squad system that actually make it happen. So second KK, at that time, the company was a very interesting company because of course, like all BB companies, it was organized based on squads. So we have inter-squads competitions, and this inter-squad competition is almost whole year round. So you have football, you have a lot of the games, captain balls, then uniform, drill, squad drill competition, and so on. So quite a lot of things that we learned from that we came together over weekends, or we meet on Sunday, but Saturday is also used for a lot of activities, and of course the band was there as well. So it was an interesting time, and a lot of things that, like camping, happy times. Expedition was very happy times as well. So you learn about how to read a map, how to plot a map. Later the school was also teaching it, but then by then I was able to tell directions much better than a lot of my school friends in that sense. But yeah, I think in that sense the BB provided a lot of fun, and I can't pinpoint a single one, but then I think I learned a lot also from the band. We had a very fairly small but very good band taught by the police band, and so we learned how to read notes from very young. It was very good. In those days, a lot of BB companies band had no luxury of learning how to read notes. They play by ears, but 2nd KK learned how to read notes and write notes as well. Yeah, so it makes a world of difference. It provided a lot of what we call a bit more adventurous, trying out new things and things like that. So yeah, I think that makes BB more exciting than a lot of things that I saw outside. You know, so that was how I think I enjoyed my BB time. I think when I first joined, we only had 3 squads. Then by the time I left, I think we had 5 squads. And 2nd KK was never a big company, never a very huge company. I think at the most, at that time, we had about 60 to 70 boys at the senior, what we call company sections those days, and maybe about 25 to 40 juniors, depending on the years. So it is a fairly medium-sized company. So we always have max of 5 squads. I think that would be just nice. And then every squad has a squad leader and a deputy squad leader who are usually NCOs. And then we also have 1 squad officers. So that has always been the tradition. And squad inspection, squad subscriptions, attendance books, all these were part and parcel of that training that we had actually during those days. Yeah. Yes, I did. I joined in the company section, which is the senior section now. And yeah, from a private, then those days there's something called a senior private. Then you move on to a lance corporal, sergeant, staff sergeant. Yeah, I left at the time when I became a staff sergeant. So it was interesting, mainly because 2nd KK, at that time when I was joining, we don't have too many officers. So the NCOs were given a lot of exposure. We started teaching target classes when we became sergeants. We taught a lot of things. We organized camps, not the officers. Never officers organized. Officers only choose the campsite. We organize, you know. So I think it's quite similar to a lot of companies, but we had that extra edge of not having enough officers, and therefore NCOs will have to shoulder a lot of responsibilities. And yeah, you find that it's actually rewarding in that sense. And one of the things that I realized later as I started to work, I noticed that a lot of the things that the BB taught us, especially in terms of organizations, because we start from organizing ourselves based on squad. Whenever you go for a camp, you also have a squad of mixture of people and so on. Whenever you work in a band, you also have your section. You also have your main band and so on. So, and the hierarchy in terms of the ranks, from a lance corporal to a sergeant, each of them taking charge of different things. So if you're a corporal or a sergeant, maybe you're already taking charge of the drill for the entire company. And coordination is something that we learn, not just from the squads, but also from the drill. I don't know how much you have learned in terms of advanced drill, but Sabah companies for a long time sustain the old drills, the old British drills of advanced drill. Advanced drill means you organize your drill based on sectional. So one command, then the rest of the sections will move in order to meet, you know, to follow that command. So some of them may have to do A movement, another one will have to do B movement and things like that in order to make it work. So it is like, for instance, I still remember something like at once in a column of sections, you know. So what do you mean by column of section? Meaning to say you have 3 sections or 2 sections marching one after another. So that is column. One column, you have 3 sections. So in order to march from a line to section, column, so you need to maneuver. So and that actually taught us a lot of things about organization. So BB actually taught us a lot of things without us realizing it. When you go for camping, what is the first thing that you do? To pack your haversack, to pack your bag. But how do you pack your bag? What should go in first and what should go in last? There is a sequence. That will teach you something about organization, isn't it? So this is something that we learn. At that point of time, learn in order to memorize, get your badge, campus badge and all. But today, thinking back, hey, they are rather useful things, because they teach you the principle of packing things that you don't need immediately, right at the bottom. And then the packing order subsequently goes to the very first thing that you need to take out when you arrive at the campsite. So, it tells you something. So, planning and how to plan for menu for 3 days camp, right? How to ensure that you have enough utensils to be brought to the campsite. How many eggs do you need to buy for the whole camp for that 3.5 days or 3 days and things like that? All these are, you think home science will teach you? Well, BB taught you, how to do it and so on. So I thought the BB taught us a lot in terms of organizations. But more importantly, I think the BB taught us about friendship. I think, I'm not sure about you, but I do realize that among my friends, a lot of their friends, a lot of the BB friends, their friends are BB friends, or a few maybe have GB friends and so on. But this would be the core of their friends, which is very interesting because I don't think I have too many school friends. I have more BB friends because we spend more time together. We went through more things together and so on. So it's quite interesting. That BB experience taught you a lot of things, and they stuck with me for many years. Sometimes you reflect back as to what you have learned, what you're doing, and you thought, hey, actually, it was BB who actually taught me all these things, for better or for worse. Well, quite a few. Back home in 2nd KK, whenever, because the old captain do have a bit of organization, keeping us informed of each other and things like that. So the current brigade secretary, Nilma, was my junior in school as well as in the BB. So he would be, what, three years my junior? Then we have Dr. Chong, whom I mentioned. Because we came together to study. He was my senior 1 year. So he came, and then I came over to study in UM. We stayed together in the same house, and then we joined the campus crusade activities together. And when I came over, I also joined the BB here. So first PJ company, I was helping with first PJ. But during that time, the BB friends from the company, from my old company, were the ones that I kept in touch. Himan, Mr. Ho Himang, all this. Himang he was from my squad actually, so he would be a bit younger. But Mr. Chong, Dr. Chong today, is now the principal of the new principal of the Seminary Theology Malaysia. So we are proud of his achievements, and we believe that God will use him mightily. So we have a lot of friends that we keep in touch, and so that's why whenever our old captain travels, there is no issue about no friends in the location. He has all the friends. I think this is quite similar to a lot of companies, senior or captains. Whenever they travel, they could always call on someone from their old companies. So this is something that we keep in touch. We pray for each other when there are things to be prayed for and things like that. When people are ill, not well, and so on, not forgetting, we are all catching up with age, age is catching up. So these friends that we have, we keep in touch. Even those who are very senior to us, people like K Tam, we're still in touch. From time to time, we'll send message to each other. Whenever I go down Singapore, I'll try to see him. Whenever he comes up, we'll have a makan. Of course, people whom I used to be in contact with, Lawrence Day, for instance, although he has retired down in Seremban, but then we still keep in touch and so on. So yeah, basically, it's the BB friends that we kept in touch. Yes, I did, because I finished my BB in 2nd KK as a staff sergeant. So I came over to study first year, and that's the closest or the nearest company that is around PJ. So I went and helped. It's in the Trinity Methodist Church, and so we had the captain, Mr. Peter Yap, who is now retired from BB. He's running a bakery, and we still see each other from time to time. Mr. Stephen Yong, the lieutenant. So I went there as a warrant officer, and then served for about 3 years. Then when I finished my studies in 1990, and I think then I became a lieutenant for a couple of years. I think that's it. After that, things became too busy. Then the BB book project came in as well. KK is a small town. People there are very hands-on. You have to travel. I used to take 2 buses in order to get to my company. So I had to change bus. So sometimes you polish everything, you change bus. By the time you arrive, everything turned not so shining anymore. So we had that experience. Small town boys have to go through a lot of this kind of experience. But when I came to First PJ at that time was a totally different company. The boys were from rather fairly well-to-do families, so they were not exposed to a lot of things. I remember there was a year I brought them to camp. We went to Mima Land. I don't know if you've heard of this place called Mima Land. It's no more there. It used to be one of the first theme parks in Malaysia. So you have a swimming pool, all these slides, water slides and so on. So we brought them there, but we took a bus. We taught them how to pack things as usual, and then after that we decided, go for this bus. We took a public bus. That was the first bus ride to a lot of boys. First bus ride, because I still remember there was when I first arrived there, we had this camp in the school. There's a school, Methodist school, boys' school, right at the back there, primary school. So we used the campsite. We used their school as campsite. And first night, all the parents came. They came with tilam and also with food. And that was quite a big surprise. So we have to send back all these things, and let the boys sleep in tents and eat food that we asked them to cook, even though the rice, tak jadi and things like that. But it was a kind of life that we want them to go through. But the parents were pleading, asking us to take some food, and their sons are not used to this kind of environment. But we told them the boys got to be toughened up, not to say toughen up, but to experience that camaraderie of living together, of sleeping together, on a mat sheet and things like that, a camp sheet. So, but then I think it turns out to be good. I think many of these boys would remember that experience of having taken public transport, eating. When we were changing bus to Mima Land, I brought them to eat chap fan, which is a normal fare to most of us, but not to these boys. It was the first time eating zap fan and drinking the shit cha, that kind of thing. But because they came from fairly okay families, so they were sent to BB. They had food ready for them and things like that. Whereas we came from smaller towns, we have to do a lot of things on our own and so on. So this is something different. But in terms of smartness, cleverness, they were first class. Because we were struggling with English, they were all brought up in English and so on. So we were brought up with dialect, speaking Hakka half the time, and then Mandarin the other time and so on. But they were all, speaking fluent language and so on. So it was a very, it is an eye-opener, no doubt. But it also interesting for me because that was the first time serving in another company. It again demonstrated that the BB is not something of your own company alone. It's not a silo. It doesn't exist in silo. It is actually a worldwide organization. So wherever you go, wherever you are, you will find that the BB looks identical, and it operates on certain principle, and the way we do things are quite similar. So in that sense, we were able to serve anywhere in that sense. Yeah. So it was quite an experience actually. Yes, I did. Both my parents are Christians, and yeah, we came from the Basel church tradition. Basel church is a Hakka church, originally a Hakka church, but then the BB belonged to the English service. So the church has English and Chinese service, Hakka service. Now they have a Mandarin service, but BB originally was with the English service. So that's where we, a lot of boys actually benefited from these arrangements because English was never a strong thing among young boys at that time, but it was a very good exposure because we have officers who can't speak Mandarin, who can't speak. We have an Indian officer from Sungai Petani, Mr. K. Ravi, who is now in Singapore, living in Johor Bahru. He was, the very first Indian man that I actually met and spoke to actually, because Sabah have very few Indians, among us. So he was one of the first officers, not just officers, but Indian men that I spoke to. And he was very kind. He taught us target class and so on. But we have to learn how to, listen to English. Hakka speaking, and then suddenly you have this English. Mr. So doesn't speak Mandarin. He only speaks Hokkien, so English with a bit of Hakka and things like that. So therefore, the BB actually taught a lot of boys English indirectly. I think that's quite true. If you go and ask some of the seniors, I think they would tell you probably the same thing. Yeah. So in that sense, the second KK also have a girls' brigade company. So the GB company started 5 years later than the BB, but it was also a very well-run company. So some of us found our wives there. So my wife was from the company. So is Dr. Zhong's wife and a few others. Yeah. So Himan's wife as well, Mr. Ho's wife. So I think in a way that's why we found that attachment to the brigade was more than just being a member. It is actually a family. I think it goes without saying that BB helped to mold us, most of us. I think we are a very rough gem We all came into the brigade as very rough. But the BB gave us a lot of things, how to carry ourselves well. I think that makes a world of difference. We were taught to dress smartly. We were told to talk to people in a very proper manner. I think a lot of things came from the BB, and it actually helped to build characters. And I think that's very true. And I think most of the boys or most people who went through the BB would have a certain quality in them. And I think that's true. In terms of Christian faith, I think the BB took a longer time to instill that. It doesn't challenge you right from day one as an evangelist would do. But then the BB actually nurture you through Bible classes and then camps, living together, looking at the officers as living examples, and therefore they have to walk the talk. And we were taught to walk the talk as well. And therefore it is us influencing others rather than being challenged to accept Christ in that manner. Of course, we were challenged subsequently to think about this issue and so on. So becoming a Christian, the BB method works wonderfully in that way. It is a different method from an evangelist kind of, the present church work and so on. It builds character, it builds organization, but it also builds the individual actually. So this is where I think we owe it to the BB, to a large extent.